Hello, everyone. My name is Leanne Gallant. This is my sign name. And I'm the National Executive Director of the Canadian Cultural Society of the Deaf, CCSD. Thank you so much for attending to celebrate. Celebrate what, you ask? Deaf Culture Center's 15th anniversary. Isn't that amazing? Before we begin, I would like to do a land acknowledgement. I acknowledge that it carries out its work on the traditional, unceded territory of the Wolastoqiyik and Mi'kmaq peoples. We, the staff and members of the board, pay respect to the elders, past and present, and descendants of this land. We honor the knowledge keepers and seek their guidance as we strive to develop closer relationships with the Indigenous peoples in Canada. This video will feature 3 celebrations in one. 3 themes, the first theme being Touch, Don't Touch demonstration, now at the Deaf Culture Center. Deaf Tea, a tea partnership with Polygong. And visual artists and poetry in memory of Julia Martin. Before we watch these 3 videos, I would like to introduce Vincent Chauvet, the CSD president. He has a few comments for all of you. And then I will introduce the co-founders of the Deaf Culture Center, founded by Joanne Cripps and Anita Small. They will explain the history, show us some pictures of the Deaf Culture Center. So enjoy the show.
Hello, and thanks for joining us at today's event. My name is Vincent Chauvet. I am the president of the CCSD, Canadian Cultural Society of the Deaf. I want to thank you for joining us today to celebrate the Deaf Culture Center 15th anniversary. A little note about the Deaf Culture Center. We should be very appreciative that they exist. It is an opportunity for deaf people to share with the world and to Canada the many skills and talent around performance, around arts that we have. For 15 years, I've seen many examples of this. So it's a very wonderful place, and I appreciate their existence. Not only do they demonstrate art and performances, but there are other opportunities to sell products, to offer a space for people who are curious about our community and about our history. And it's also a gathering place for people to meet. So we do appreciate that Deaf Culture Center. CCSD's board, both past and present, have been tremendous support for the Deaf Culture Center, and we hope to continue to be for the next 15 years. It has been a very busy year for us. We're excited to announce that we have a lot of fresh new ideas from new board members. They come from varied disciplines with a lot of different talent. We've also hired a new executive director, Leanne Gallant, and I'm looking forward very much to seeing how our organization can grow and thrive. So thank you for coming to celebrate with us for the 15 years anniversary of the Deaf Culture Center, and I look forward to 15 more years. Please enjoy the rest of the event today, and thank you for watching.
The Deaf Culture Center was founded by Forrest Nickerson in conjunction with Angela Strati, who felt there was a lack of representation of deaf artists, painters, sculptors, and performers. After numerous consultations with members of the community across Canada, over $1 million was raised, and the center was founded, launched by a gala in June of 2006. There were over 600 attendees. One of the libraries at the center is in honor of Eileen Youngs, a huge supporter and benefactor of the center. The Deaf Culture Center has 3 areas: language, arts, and place or history. The Deaf Culture Center also has its own library and multimedia studio for filming and developing a virtual museum in ASL, LSQ, English, and French. The first special exhibits were Deaf Women Artists, Deaf Indigenous Artists, Deaf Sports, and Deaf Filmmakers. The Deaf Culture Center has approximately 60,000 visitors per year, with school tours, workshops, cooking classes, programs like Nuit Blanche, and all-night theater and dance. The Deaf Culture Center is a place to celebrate deaf life.
touch and don't touch. To touch means the ability to feel and experience through tactile means, and to not touch means not to have that experience, but to strictly observe from a visual perspective. I have explored 2 deaf artists who settled in the Toronto area, and I have researched their backgrounds to discover who they are and the kind of art that they create. Deaf Chinese artist Wei Wang. She specializes in inner painting, which is painting the inside of glass bottles with oil paints. She trained under her sensei in China, who taught her for over 2 years. Her work is very elaborate, using very precise strokes, and her work cannot be touched, but only appreciated by observation. Deaf-blind Sri Lankan artist Navija Navarathnam. Her artwork has a 3-dimensional and textured aspects, which permit a tactile experience. This is the reason I chose these 2 contrasting artists to showcase their artwork for touch, don't touch. The pandemic has impacted deaf culture, and that is why I have chosen these 2 deaf artists. I wanted people to feel a sense of connection, because the COVID pandemic has affected all of us. As humans, we need that sense of connection, and that is even more heightened for deaf people, because touch is a means of connecting with each other, such as our attention-getting behaviors. Deaf-blind and deaf-low vision individuals experience another need for connection from a more tactile experience, something that they can touch. I myself am deaf-blind, low vision. I want to share a story with you. A story about my friend who is deaf-blind and our time together. She was able to identify me through scent, or by touching the braid at the back of my head or the ring on my finger. She wasn't able to do that with others because of the lack of connection with them. By spending time with me, she came to know my scent and my characteristics. Unfortunately, my friend passed, and I do miss her. But because of that relationship, I wanted to create artwork that used textures and various materials to replicate the experience of how my friend knew me and the world around her. Blind or deaf-blind people can experience the art through touch and connect with it. Could you tell me how you create your artwork? Using a piece of paper like this one, the first thing I do is use a pencil to create the essential design, and then I begin to add some color using the watercolor paint that I have here. After allowing it to dry, I use this precision knife to cut out the shape from the paper so its edges can be felt to give definition to the piece, much like how you can feel the edges of a picture frame. I then use bottled ink, like this one, which is available in any color, or watercolor paints in various colors that you can see on this palette. In Indian culture, we love things that glitter or sparkle, and we adorn our fabrics with it. So I add these, which adds texture to my creations. The fabrics I choose have a texture, so in the piece with the woman, her nipples and her dress can be experienced tactilely, so it can be identified. Everything is glued on in layers, so it creates depth to the art. And again, all of these features are able to be experienced through touch. By providing contrasting depth that can be felt by blind or deaf-blind individuals, it provides a rich experience and a connection to the art. My name is Wei Wang. I am a deaf Chinese artist, and I specialize in painting inside of glass bottles using oil paints. My artwork cannot be touched because it's within the bottle. People want to touch it, they are curious. However, the bottles are made of glass and they can easily be fouled by fingerprints. In addition, it's for safety reasons as well, as the bottles are made of glass and quite fragile. So if people were to touch the object and hold it, there's a possibility it could fall and break or damage my artwork. Could you describe how your art is made? I make my art first by taking a glass bottle like this one, and again I want to demonstrate the reason why you can't touch my work. As I tap it here, you can hear how fragile it is. I'm going to demonstrate what I do. I use this thin iron rod and attach a small curved pointed brush to the tip. I'm going to use the black oil paint in this demonstration. I clean off the tip and ensure the brush tip is to a fine point. That is the basic process, and of course I would use more ink to create a more elaborate design. I now want to show you another sample using a different shape. I have this rectangular piece, and I've already sketched the inside, accessing this slot along the bottom. So now what I need to do is add color. I add color now. In typical oil painting, you start with the base and add the color last. However, this process is the exact opposite because the outermost layer is the glass. I need to think of the final image and work backwards. But because this is oil paint, I can only apply one layer at a time, and I have to wait for it to dry before I add the next inner layer, and I do this multiple times. The more layers there are, the more complex it is, and I have to plan it out, but that is my process.
DEFT, DEFT, means demonstrating skill and cleverness. DEFT was established in 2015 at the Old Deaf Culture Center. We had a small tea shop there. Since then, we've moved to the new Deaf Culture Center, but we didn't have a kitchen available to us. Then in 2019, a tea company, Pal Gong, contacted us. And we negotiated and agreed that we would set up their tea at our Deaf Culture Center and help our organization in its operations, with the premise to hire more deaf individuals, staff, and show more deaf artwork. So we set up deaf tea franchises across the country. And now, currently at the Deaf Culture Center, we have a deaf tea bar where we sell our tea. We have 8 different flavors. Each logo has its own explanation. We have a Deaf Tea booklet that we'll be sharing tomorrow. Contact us if you need a copy. You can see the logo here was designed by an individual, Bruce Mal Design Company. And he wanted to match the Deaf Culture Center, its logo and branding. And Joanne and Mita earlier showed a picture of individuals in a room collaborating, brainstorming, sharing ideas, trying to come up with some names that would fit with the deaf community. And they came up with 600 words and narrowed it down to 8. And that's what we'll be showing later with the tea. And how we came up with the logos was Bruce put different electrodes on our hands that would then emulate the signs and transfer that onto the computer to come up with 3D art. So our motions would be shown on the computer, and that's how we came up with the 8 different logos. So we'll show you the 8 different teas and the different flavors, including the ASL and LSQ signs for them. If you're interested in learning more about deaf tea, please contact us. Or if you would like to buy some tea, you can order it on our website. Or better yet, come on in to the Deaf Culture Center and see our deaf tea bar and see all the different logos.
The first DVIA, which stands for Deaf View Image Art, Canadian Exhibits Handbook, features the first 10 years of exhibits at the Deaf Culture Center from 2006 through to 2015. This second book, Poetry in Visual Art, a Deaf Retrospective, features Canada's diverse deaf visual art exhibits at the Deaf Culture Center Gallery over the last 5 years, from 2016 to 2020. It honors beloved late Julie Martin. Julie was an ASL poet, master ASL instructor, deaf arts pioneer, and Canadian Cultural Society of the Deaf board member, supporting deaf arts.
Hello. I'd like to take this moment to share a few thoughts with you. This field of visual languages in the arts and sign language honor the late Julie Martin. Julie was a passionate and longtime supporter of this area of art. Whether it was sign language as a visual medium in art, or poetry, or storytelling, or even the creative and sometimes playful use of American Sign Language, Julie relished being a part of this art. But not only as an artist, Julie recognized the value of the observer as well, ensuring that deaf people could also appreciate this art form for years to come. Now a few words about the late Julie Martin. Julie was recognized by Dr. Clayton Valley, who found her unique style of signing and movement important to include in his published works, ASL Poetry, The Selected Works of Clayton Valley. Julie has a strong passion to support others who have this creative approach to playing with signed language or expressing themselves through poetry or performance art, or just being creative with our own language. Julie Martin's family and her estate have made a generous donation annually for the next 3 years so that her work and her passion of encouraging others can continue for years to come. Thank you for your time.
Hello, I hope you've been enjoying the show so far. Celebrating 15 years with the Deaf Culture Center. I can't believe it. CCSD would like to say a big thank you to all of you, the donors and sponsors. Without your help, the Deaf Culture Center would not be able to grow and expand. We are now growing with your support, and we're humbled by that. I would like to take a few moments to recognize them. At the community level, in memory of Julie Martin. At the culture level, Sign Language Interpreting Associates of Ottawa, SLEO. TD, CBLS, Cynthia Benoit, Linguistics Services. At the Resonate level, Canadian Association of the Deaf, CAD-ASC. CCRW, Canadian Council on Rehabilitation and Work. Individual donor, Joanne Robinson. There are different levels that we will share and that will scroll up on the screen at the end. If you're thinking it's too late to sponsor or donate, it's never too late. You can enter our website, the Deaf Culture Center, and donate now. We would appreciate your support and help to continue to grow and expand. Soon we'll be sharing our e-book. It's a poetry on visual arts. You'll be able to enjoy that online. And DEFT and what that means. We'll be sharing that with you. If you have any questions about the Deaf Culture Center, CCSD, or you'd like to set up a meeting with me, please contact me anytime. I look forward to working with you for many years to come. Bye for now, and thanks again for your support.